we? Thanks for sticking around, everybody, and good morning. You have to put up with my Australian accent, and still dealing with jet lag, so my voice is a bit. But look, that's right. We're copper, but we've also got zinc, silver, gold, and a few other bits and pieces which I'll talk to, which is really exciting, particularly over next door over there in Utah. But Storm is our focus. It's in Nunavut, and I'll talk to that. But look, we're an Australian company, 3 assets, 2 in Utah and 1 in Nunavut, Canada. The information I'm going to be talking to you today is JORC compliant, so take it. Depends which jurisdiction you're from. Take it as it comes. And I'll just quickly talk about this photo because this is kind of the opportunity I'm going to talk to you today is really about what this copper project presents from a development point of view, but also a growth point of view. So this is the typical ore you see. It's very coarse grain. This is a sediment-hosted copper deposit, which is important, and I'll talk to the scalability of that and also the grades of what we'd expect to see in the district. But it's very coarse-grained. It's hosted in dolomite, and it's a chalcocite-dominant ore body, which is 80% copper, and we do get bits of bornite and chalcopyrite as well. And it's also very strong in silver, and that's all we get, copper and silver together in a very pure copper mineral. So what I'll present and what Storm is certainly shaping up to be is probably one of the lowest capital copper mines you'll see on the globe. And I'll talk to how we get to that, and that's the immediate opportunity in front of us. It's very simple, it's high grade, it's low cost, but it also sits within a district scale potential, and not many junior companies can generally talk to that, and I'll demonstrate that today. The project's significantly de-risked. We've got 2 partners, 2 strategic partners. We've got Taurus and Ocean Partners backing us, providing a lot of the finance to get this mine up and going. And what you'll also see, there's obviously a compelling valuation gap between some of the Australian ASX junior companies and ourselves. So it's certainly an opportunity to grow. Where are we? So we are north, and a lot of people roll their eyes when you say Nunavut, but I can guarantee that if Agnico is in the room or B2Gold, they'd absolutely be saying it's one of the best places in Canada to work. We're very far north. We're on the Northwest Passage, so regular shipping. We're on the logistical highway up there. You can see there's some other companies up there. Obviously Agnico, you've got MMG, you've got B2Gold, Teck Kimminko was up there, you've got Baffinland. So this is a mining district, very strong historical mining district. We operate in an Arctic desert, so despite our location, we get less than 1 metre of snow a year. So that sounds crazy, but what that means is no animals, there's no vegetation, there's no people, all of the high-risk things to getting things into operation. So our closest community is Resolute. A lot of those locals there actually work on our project and worked at the Polaris and the Nanisivik mines up there, so a very strong mining culture. That's the ship. We brought that into Aston Bay last year. That's demonstrated bringing the full logistical chain. We brought things into the project and we sent things out. So I've confirmed that this is absolutely, The other thing to consider here, so it's all year round mining. Doesn't matter, time of day or climate, whatever. It's seasonal shipping though. But you look at Red Dog, you look at Voisey Bay, you look at Baffinland. All these mines ship during a small period during the year, but mining is 24/7. So this is the initial, as Storm's developed, it's gone basically from an exploration project to a development opportunity in the space of 2 years. So with that, internally we want to wrap some numbers around it to see what it's actually presenting today. A lot of people say you need to be 1 million tonnes of copper before you turn things on, but there's lots of examples, particularly in the gold space in Australia, where you don't need 1 million ounces, you don't need 2 million ounces. What you have could actually propel the company forward, making your own cash flow. So on a very limited resource to date, it's got some pretty compelling economics, and the key one I'd point out here is the capital to get this thing going, which is about $50 million. And I'll demonstrate how we achieve that. But as you can see, it's probably one of the lowest capital copper projects on the planet. It's also near term. Because of the low risk ESG to this project, we began the environmental work 2 years ago, so we're 2 years into baseline, including the community liaison and all the other bits and pieces. So permits are currently in with the Nunavut Planning Commission right now for the mine here. So that's usually a two to 3 year process. Medellin went from discovery to production in 5 years. So there's good examples of mines being very quickly accelerated here. Like I said, this is stage one. What Storm stage 2 looks like, I'll talk to in a few slides, but this is sort of the numbers behind what we're talking about in terms of the economics. So all of the mineralisation today is either at surface or very close to surface. We've got a number of open pits. The grade's obviously very high. The initial resource we put out, which we're doing an upgrade this year, which will hopefully grow, but also the confidence level is going to increase so we can publish a reserve, is around, we've got about 250,000 tonnes of copper. Like I said, most of that's sticking out of the ground. Half of that will go into the current mine plan, but things that we're doing with the PFS work now is going to make that more efficient, and so we expect that, and also the resource work's making that expand as well, so we should see some mine life increase in the initial term, hopefully get to the 14 million tonne range in the first mine plan. Very low strip ratio, we're averaging, looking to do that 14 to 16,000 tonnes of copper when steady state in year 3, but again, the exploration work, we expect to expand that. Now, this is the key to how we do things here. This is going to be one of the first copper mines in the world to be solely doing a product based on beneficiation, DMS and ore sorting. And that's the ability of this mineralisation. So like I said, chalcocite is essentially twice the density of the dolomite host. It's very coarse grains. When we break it up, it essentially makes a very coarse copper and waste product. So we did this test work 2 years ago. We've done multiple large bulk samples, and we've shown that we can take a 1 to 2% copper feed grade and make a 15 to 20% copper product. That kind of upgrade is world class and not repeatable in a lot of other copper deposits, particularly when they've got bornite and chalcopyrite and some of the lower grade species. That plant is $21 million and ore sorter costs $2 million. So you can see it's very scalable as well. So this will do, that plant will do 1.25 million tonnes per annum. If we want to increase production, you can, even by 50%, it's very marginal increase in cost, and it's all modular, so it can be stacked together very quickly. If you go traditional flotation, obviously you have to build a parallel flotation circuit next to the original one. The other thing with this is that there's no tailings, there's no reagents. So operating in an Arctic environment, operating in any environment, you don't have those environmental risks, and that certainly helps permitting. A lot of people don't believe in the process. Well, it's fairly simple. It's used in lithium mines. They take a spodumene concentrate from 1 to 5% and then concentrate it on. It's used in iron ore, it's used in coal, it's used in diamond. There's a diamond mine that does 6 million tonnes per annum up in Canada. So it can do scale. Kennecott, Bingham Canyon, largest copper mine in the world, is putting ore sorters in there as well. So proven technology. The other side is DMS, so we use jigs. It's essentially gold panning. You know, you've got 2 different density materials and you're essentially separating through gravity. So that's simple. Now, on the basis of that, we've attracted some pretty good partners. Taurus Royalty bought a 0.9% royalty on the copper production for $7.5 million. That's completely non-dilutive. It also shows their belief in the project getting up, because if we don't, their royalty goes up in smoke. The other thing is that we've attracted Ocean Partners, a global metal trading company. They're familiar with ore sorting. They're familiar with doing lower grade copper concentrates. They do it every day of the year. They send out a 10 to 15% copper out of Africa every day. So they've got a market for this place. They know how to do it. They're experts in moving it, so they're the perfect partner. On the back of that, they took a 9% stake in the company. That was kind of the price to come in. They're also providing up to 80% of the initial capital, so that's $40 million. So the delta for us as a junior mining company is only that $10 million to get it going, and they get 100% of the offtake that's defined under the current PEA. If we find the next big thing, which I'll talk to, then that has to get renegotiated. And so it's a very, it used to be that offtake was done in the later parts of after PFS. The confidence and the belief in this project getting up has brought these guys in at a very early stage. I won't talk to this much other than, look, there's significant value gap in some of the other Aussie ASX juniors. And the thing I definitely suggest people consider when you're looking at these stocks is what's a realistic potential of these guys getting into production. And so I think we're seriously de-risked from a simplicity in the process, the resource growth potential, and also the jurisdiction. Now, Storm, everything I talked about sits under that one black dot that says Storm Copper. So we have over 2,200 square kilometres. Our joint venture owns 100% of a sediment-hosted copper belt. So the analogies there, Central African copper belt, Zambia, DRC, Kalahari copper belt, so you're talking about deposits like Mateo. These usually clusters, so there's lots of deposits within the same belt. They usually fall in that 250 million tonne range in that 1 to 2% copper. We're on the bell curve for grade, we're at 1.2 now, and we're sitting at 20-something million tonnes, so a lot of growth potential here. We've got 110 kilometres of strike. We've got copper exposed at both ends of the belt, and to the north, about 200 kilometres, sits Polaris. That's been confirmed that it's exactly the same mineralisation event. So this whole belt is mineralised. We've got a zinc deposit seal that sits out on the coast, so we've got a distinct zinc and copper horizon, very similar to the Mount Isa in Queensland. It's very rarely you see this very near-term copper opportunity and also a district-scale copper potential in the hands of a junior. So we believe that by getting this mine up and going in the near term, that'll fund the exploration for this in the long term. And look, the analogy, I like to use analogies because I think it's good data points. And so there's a nickel company back in the 2000s in Western Australia called Jubilee Mines. They had probably about 10,000 tonnes of nickel that stuck pretty much in an open pit environment. They made the decision to mine it. They poured that money back in the ground, and they ended up having 400,000 tonnes of copper and got bought out for $3 billion. So I believe American West could be on the same sort of growth path with the land we have here. I won't talk about this, but you can see some of the amazing intersections we're getting outside the current resource. Last year we hit 22 metres at 8.5% copper. That's sitting next to our big cyclone, low-grade, high-grade, big flat, kilometre-long deposit. We've just done an EM survey this year, and there's a lot of anomalies that come out of this. So we've got a very long list of target pipeline to test in the coming years. This just illustrates it's a stacked copper system. That's a big copper system. We've got 2 horizons that have been identified to date, and you can see there, we think the second half of Cyclone, which sits at 15 million tonnes now, it sits at depth where we're getting indications of high-grade mineralisation at depth. If that's a 30 million tonner, that's Mateo in Africa. Samphire Resources, that's a $1 billion asset. So lots to be found here, lots to do. I'll just very quickly in the last 2 minutes talk about Utah, because it's very, very unique and it's getting a lot more interest with the new administration, etc. So we've got a West Desert project. It's currently a zinc, copper, indium skarn. Indium's the key point here. It's the only indium deposit in the US, and it's one of the largest underdeveloped indium deposits in the world. We've got over 24 million ounces of indium in this. The old resource had 50 million ounces. USA is 100% net importer of indium, and most of it comes from China and Bolivia, and China's just put a ban on indium. So this, while indium's not the biggest financial driver here, the zinc, copper and silver are, it could open a lot of doors to critical metals funding, and that's the key here. So we want to advance this project. It is an advanced project. Storm is our flagship at the moment. We can't do both in the junior market, capital constrained, so we want to look for joint venture partners on this, potentially put into a new company, or get critical metals funding through the government, to non-dilutive funding to progress this. It's a great project. I won't talk about what President Trump has said, but certainly there's been a lot of movement in Utah with fast-tracking a few of the mines in the area. The other part of this is the other elements which I'll talk to, which is moly, gallium and iron ore. So this is a porphyry that's the same age as Bingham Canyon. We drilled one intersection from the porphyry to get to the skarn, and we hit 490 metres at the same molybdenum grade as Bingham Canyon. And we get grades up to 4% moly in the base of the zinc mine. We don't understand it yet. If I wrapped a resource around it, we could have 50 to 100 million tonnes of molybdenum mineralisation here tomorrow. So there's a lot of work to do there. There's a copper zone that's close to the porphyry. It's got high-grade gold with it. It's not what we know here, it's about what we don't know. Only 10% of West Desert is being explored, so there's a lot more work to do here. So on that note, as you can see, to advance assets, seriously undervalued, I believe, and hopefully we can get this thing going in the next couple of years, and that'll provide cash flow to fund the company going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have time